An unprecedented declaration from the British royal family has sent shockwaves across the globe, a development that defies all expectations. For an institution that has spent decades mastering the art of public perception and stoic silence, this sudden admission of a profound crisis has left the public reeling. This isn't merely a moment of sadness. It represents a seismic shift in royal history that forces us to question the very longevity of the monarchy itself. Type the number 1 in the comments as we peel back the layers of this unfolding royal mystery. The reality behind the headlines is as tragic as it is unnerving. On a day that began with the usual meticulously rehearsed rituals and polished smiles, the mood within the palace walls suddenly shifted into a paralyzed, icy silence. Stepping into the spotlight, the royal press secretary, visibly shaken yet maintaining professional composure, delivered a concise statement that instantly blindsided the world. Rumors spread like wildfire. Was it a sudden illness, a shocking abdication, or something far worse? Yet no amount of speculation could have steeled the public for the profound truth that was beginning to emerge. Unfiltered camera angles revealed the raw tension gripping the monarchy. William struggled to mask his stress, his clenched jawline offering a rare glimpse into his internal turmoil. Catherine sat with characteristic elegance, yet her eyes shone with a piercing mix of solicitude and strength. In sharp contrast, King Charles looked withdrawn and overshadowed by his physical frailty, cutting a lonely figure without the support of Queen Camilla, who was notably missing from the proceedings. It was a silence that spoke volumes, unsettling and unexplained, doing nothing to reassure the public and everything to fuel speculation. Within the privacy of the palace, the illusion of stability was crumbling, revealing that the monarch's condition was significantly more precarious than the world had been led to believe. Rumors of his decline had been simmering in the background for quite some time, but the severity of the situation had finally crossed a line where it could no longer be concealed. Just as the gravity of the crisis set in a stunning curveball was thrown into the mix, Prince William and Princess Catherine unveiled a daring new roadmap, not under the king's banner but titled the Diana Initiative. Framed as a reform program, this moved far beyond simple charity or modernization. It was a resurrection of a legacy that has refused to fade since August 1997. By invoking the name of the people's princess, a figure synonymous with raw compassion and courage, this initiative serves as both a touching tribute and a powerful declaration. It signals that even decades later, Diana's spirit remains the guiding force shaping the monarchy's future. The public verdict was swift and overwhelming. The internet erupted with nostalgia, circulating clips that showcased Diana's humanity, from her touching moments with patients to her defiance against the media lens. This surge of support framed the initiative as a hopeful fresh start, yet it cast a long shadow over Queen Camilla. Despite her official coronation alongside Charles recently and years of effort to win public favor, the spotlight moved away from her. Her silence and lack of visibility at major events became impossible to ignore, forcing the world to wonder, is this a voluntary choice, a PR strategy, or the harsh reality of an internal restructuring behind palace doors? Palace insiders suggest that Camilla vehemently opposed the move, warning that it risked drowning out the current royal narrative. Yet as King Charles's condition weakens, her political capital has visibly eroded. William and Catherine have effectively seized the reins, scripting the narrative and steering the ship, proving they are far more than just heirs in waiting. They are acting as the true power brokers. In a symbolic shift, images of Diana have been discreetly reinstated, her patronages revitalized, and her core values of empathy and mental wellness are once again permeating every official statement. Simultaneously, Queen Camilla finds herself navigating increasingly treacherous territory. After spending decades battling for public legitimacy, she now confronts the very real threat of being sidelined as hushed conversations about a post-Camilla era begin to grow louder. Whether this signals a permanent changing of the guard or merely a temporary strategic pivot remains to be seen. Yet the message is undeniable. William and Catherine have taken command masterfully, interweaving Diana's legacy into the modern fabric of the monarchy and rewriting the royal narrative in real time. One burning question lingers. Is this a masterstroke of calculated strategy, or is history simply forcing its way through the cracks of tradition? What untold truths lie buried beneath the weight of the crown? Keep your eyes open. The gilded halls of Buckingham Palace are already echoing with the undeniable whispers of a regime change, and the story is far from over. Don't let the polished tone of the recent announcement fool you. It masks a brewing storm that the crown is struggling to suppress. While the narrative focuses on King Charles's condition, which certainly looms large, there is a deeper undercurrent at play. What's truly unfolding is a subtle, almost invisible shifting of the guard as the reins of authority begin to quietly change hands behind palace doors. Palace insiders describe a scene of chaos behind closed doors, marked by sleepless nights and high-stakes strategy sessions. While King Charles projects an image of stoic stability to the cameras privately, he is said to be shouldering a heavy burden of remorse. As for the Diana initiative launched under his banner, make no mistake, this is far more than a standard charity rollout. To the world, it serves as a powerful resurrection of the people's princess, instantly tapping into the memory of the woman who set the gold standard for empathy and genuine connection. For Charles, however, this does more than just launch a program. It rips open scars he has spent decades painstakingly trying to stitch together. Every round of applause for the initiative lands like a stinging reminder of past missteps, echoing the ghosts of history. Diana's memory has ceased to be a distant echo. Instead, it is vibrant and alive, breathing through her son and daughter-in-law. In William's steel-eyed determination and Catherine's effortless grace, we see the undeniable reflection of the very values Diana championed. For Camilla, this shift feels perilously close to a silent erasure. After decades spent painstakingly reconstructing her public image to earn a fragile acceptance, she suddenly finds herself eclipsed once more. Her conspicuous absence from key moments has sparked intense debate. Is this a calculated step back or a forced retreat? Meanwhile, the whispers are growing louder, suggesting her influence is rapidly waning and her chapter in royal history is shrinking as the colossal legacy of Diana returns to dominate the spotlight. Interestingly, William displays no overt ambition to seize the throne, yet his presence seems to naturally permeate every void left behind. Unassuming but effective, he is fundamentally reshaping the monarchy's identity, making it modern, empathetic, and accessible. Insiders suggest a telling detail: many of the initiative's key speeches were not penned by Charles's courtiers, but drafted by William and Catherine themselves. If accurate, this signals a massive pivot. The heirs have ceased to be passive observers waiting in the wings. They are actively driving the narrative at this very moment. For Charles, this reality cuts deep. His reign, only officially consecrated at Westminster Abbey in May 2023, is already being redefined by tides he is powerless to stem. The bitter irony is that his carefully curated legacy is now inextricably bound to the memory of the very woman he spent decades trying to fade from history. The palace had banked on continuity, an unbroken loop of formalities and predictable schedules. Yet beneath that manicured facade, the tectonic plates of power have quietly shifted. High-level briefings, traditionally commanded by King Charles, are now increasingly gravitating toward his son. It didn't take long for the press corps to catch on. Suddenly, Kensington Palace, not Clarence House, became the true center of gravity, where journalists went chasing the real story. Without a single official proclamation, the message has been received loud and clear. The balance of power is undeniably tilting. William, historically viewed as the careful observer, is now operating with a fierce, purposeful energy that demands attention. He has shed his guarded exterior for a new authority. His tone is far less casual, his bearing significantly more commanded and king-like. Away from the public eye, sources describe him architecting the future not with haste, but with exacting care, drafting a blueprint for his legacy with the discipline of a commander. Do not mistake this for an uprising. It is far too quiet for that. It is a velvet revolution, a takeover so understated it feels almost accidental to the casual observer. Yet those paying close attention see the deliberate shift in power. And he has a powerful ally by his side. Beside him, Princess Catherine commands a level of respect that renders titles secondary. Her presence in community centers and hospitals isn't a performance of obligation, it is a masterclass in genuine engagement. While Queen Camilla built her standing through calculated appearances and inner-circle relationships, Catherine has forged something far more resilient, organic public faith. Each calming gesture and steady appearance reinforces her role as the family's unshakable bedrock, holding the institution together while the ground shifts beneath them. The contrast is impossible to ignore. After fighting tooth and nail to secure even a reluctant acceptance at the 2023 coronation, Camilla is now becoming a ghost in her own palace. Her headlines are drying up and her image is reportedly being scrubbed from key locations. With her patronages receiving less spotlight and her loyalists exiting the stage one by one, the prevailing theory is chilling. This silence isn't a personal choice, it looks like she is being pushed out. For a sitting queen, silence is often sharper than a scream. Being ignored is worse than being judged. Her private refuge, Ray Mill, has lost its power to shield her. What was once a safe haven from royal rituals is now the epicenter of intrigue. The air is thick with speculation regarding mysterious uninvited guests and the discovery of papers that were never meant to see the light of day. Validity aside, these whispers cement the image of a figure once commanding center stage, now being inexorably pushed to the periphery. In the same breath, William and Catherine are actively rewriting the royal script in real time. Their authority isn't broadcasted through decrees, but demonstrated through nuance evident in their genuine warmth and their uncanny ability to channel the very ideals of compassion that were once the signature of Princess Diana. Reflecting the late princess's unwavering empathy, the Diana Initiative is not merely a memory, it is a movement serving as the vital pulse of the monarchy's new direction. King Charles still wears the crown, yet his reign feels increasingly ceremonial. He resembles a figurehead watching from a distance, a monarch who has seemingly accepted his role to facilitate evolution rather than resist the inevitable shift in power. For the Queen, this isolation stings like a betrayal. But for the Prince and Princess, it serves as a critical opening, a rare opportunity to rewrite the rules. And so the whispers have evolved into a realization: the crown is not dying, it is undergoing a silent metamorphosis. Its vitality is no longer drawn from the rank of the wearer, but from the consistent grounding presence of William and Catherine themselves. This isn't a monarchy in crisis, it is a monarchy in metamorphosis. The global audience is left wondering if the true matriarch has already ascended to the throne in spirit, holding the crown in everything but name. Yet a chilling question remains. What happens when the palace silence speaks louder than its decrees? What deep secrets are currently rattling the very foundations of the family? Stay tuned because the final chapter hasn't been written yet. This declaration didn't echo through the grand halls. It didn't need to. Yet every soul within Buckingham Palace seemed to register the frequency. A shockwave rippled through the corridors, fueled not by trumpet blasts or royal decrees, but by their conspicuous absence. For King Charles, who waited over 7 decades to finally bear the weight of the crown, this silence resonates with a deafening clarity. It doesn't feel like mere negligence. It feels like a calculated erasure. Behind closed doors, the atmosphere was frantic with hushed meetings and scrambled schedules, all while the king remained sidelined from a decision that was already firmly rooted. As the Diana Initiative dominated the news cycle, weaving its narrative across global media, the result was undeniable. It may not have been introduced as a rebellion, but it functioned like one. It elevated William and Catherine to the pinnacle of public adoration, while simultaneously eclipsing Charles, relegating him to a supporting role within his own kingdom. Charles's first instinct wasn't fury, but deep doubt. The question burned had empathy been rebranded as a political tactic. The eventual sit-down at Clarence House was thick with unspoken friction. The atmosphere was dense enough to crush the air out of the room. Charles, weary but standing his ground, didn't mince words. He asked why the chain of command had been broken and why the institution was being exposed to the world without his authorization. William, unflinching and calm, offered no apologies. His response was curt, a single sentence capable of rewriting their entire history. "This is not a discussion. It is a strategy." That line marked a silent, irreversible fracture. Charles, molded by decades of protocol and patience, clung to the safety of continuity. But William, forged in the fires of scandal and tragedy, understood a harsher truth. Survival now demands speed adaptation and a narrative that speaks to the present. To the father, this looked like reckless impatience. To the son, it was nothing less than preservation. The meeting ended without a truce or a gentleman's agreement, leaving behind a silence brittle enough to snap as the king walked out. It was a watershed moment. Staff openly murmured about a tectonic shift in authority. The tone among the courtiers recalibrated immediately. Strategists started writing new scripts, and assistants began regarding William not as an heir-in-waiting, but as a sovereign who was no longer preparing for the race, but already dictating its pace. It may not have been a coronation yet, it marked a massive, unceremonious transfer of authority. The shift is undeniable. Influence is no longer anchored to the king. It is steadily migrating toward his heirs. But what untold truths lie behind this quiet competition? And is the royal family prepared for the tremors to come? Type the number 2 in the comments to keep following the story. The first shockwave wasn't triggered by a grand speech or a royal decree, but by a few carefully curated words. What started as a polite remark at a charity luncheon became the spark that set the palace rumor mill on fire. When asked about the Diana Initiative, Queen Camilla offered a gentle smile and a chilling reply. "The royal family has always served with dedication. We do not need to invoke the past to prove that." To the casual observer, it was a standard formality. But to the press and the public, It was a thinly veiled jab aimed not just at Diana's memory, but directly at the woman now bearing her torch, Catherine, the Princess of Wales. By the afternoon, cable news panels were analyzing the breach of protocol frame by frame. The internet interpreted the gesture as evidence of a deep-seated power struggle, the specific type of drama the monarchy had desperately tried to suppress. Pundits debated the central issue: was the Queen Consort upholding the institution, or simply protecting her own standing? As approval ratings dropped, the verdict was undeniable. The electorate was far from impartial. Support for the Princess of Wales, already surging following her highly publicized tour of the Commonwealth, skyrocketed to record-breaking levels. Yet the princess chose not to engage in a public tit-for-tat. She let the news cycle breathe, eventually breaking her silence during an unassuming community roundtable for her cause. Skipping any defensive manifesto or sharp retorts, she offered a single resonant observation. Our obligation isn't to the history written behind us, but to the possibilities waiting ahead. The delivery was poised, yet unmistakable. It served less as a reply and more as a strategic pivot, highlighting a stark divergence. While the Queen Consort guarded the status quo, the princess was embodying evolution. The difference in their philosophies was undeniable. On one side stood a consort, entrenched in the institution's gears, reliable yet unyielding. On the other, a leader-in-waiting who projected compassion, relevance, and intent. The electorate picked up on the dynamic instantly. Pundits began to debate the real issue. Was this merely a friction of personalities or the opening moves of a genuine tug-of-war for influence? Behind the palace walls press, aides scrambled to contain the narrative, aggressively leaking reports that the royal front remained completely united. However, sources on deep background suggest a shift. The princess's leverage has expanded well beyond mere ribbon-cutting opportunities. She is driving the cultural agenda, architecting policy, and quietly overhauling the definition of authority inside the firm. Distinct figures, divergent paths. Although the institution maintains a facade of tranquility, the populace is increasingly choosing teams. But what is the actual catalyst behind these rumors of a split? And just how fractured is the foundation? Stick around as we investigate. The rumors were circulating through the corridors well before the tabloids caught the scent. This wasn't the standard gossip regarding wardrobe malfunctions or gala gaffes. It was chatter concerning a profound, unsettling shift. A Cold War was brewing in plain sight. There were instances where the Princess Royal, typically the gold standard of discipline, let visible irritation show piercing the veil of royal decorum. Is this merely a domestic squabble or the initial fracture in the monarchy's bedrock? The mystery lingers as the truth stays under lock and key. To observers familiar with the Princess Royal, this conduct is hardly a shock. She isn't one to stir the pot simply to grab headlines. When she chooses to push back, it is a calculated maneuver driven by ethics rather than ego. And in this instance, she isn't locking horns with a staffer or a mid-level bureaucrat. Her opposition is the Queen Consort herself. The Princess Royal has long held that the institution is more than mere pageantry extending beyond noble ranks or balcony appearances. In her eyes, it is an active obligation to the citizenry. Any figure, regardless of rank, who jeopardizes that mandate will meet her stiff opposition. Yet the Queen Consort is a veteran of public warfare. Her resilience was hardened in the fires of tabloid outrage, controversy, and constant observation. From the era of relentless media attacks to her coronation at Westminster Abbey in May 2023, she has demonstrated that she is tenacious, calculating, and a master of endurance. To assume she would fold under criticism or Anne's stoic disapproval is a massive miscalculation. If the Princess Royal symbolizes unvarnished integrity and service, the Queen Consort personifies quiet grit and tactical maneuvering. Collectively, they act as opposing currents, meeting in what is arguably the most understated friction point in the modern era of the monarchy. This friction isn't a recent development. Insiders suggest the animosity has been brewing for generations well before the consort's formal integration into the firm. Their shared past is knotted with ancient grievances, complex romantic histories, and pivotal choices that reshaped their lives in unpredictable ways. To really grasp the current freeze, you have to rewind to the 1970s, when the Princess Royal was captivated by Andrew Parker Bowles, a dashing officer with undeniable swagger. The relationship was electric, and speculation about a marriage was rampant. However, the act of settlement presented a non-negotiable roadblock. Because Andrew was Catholic, marrying him would have required Anne to surrender her royal standing. The romance, no matter how genuine, was doomed by ancient statutes. Camilla's subsequent ties to both Andrew and Charles only thickened the plot, transforming overlapping love triangles into a permanent, complicated legacy that irrevocably shaped the House of Windsor. This tangled network of vintage romances and official responsibilities paved the way for the icy stares and clipped dialogue now leaking into the public sphere. Therefore, when the Princess Royal's frustration bubbles up, it isn't simple hard-headedness. It is rooted in a half-century of private lore, emotional treason, and necessary concessions. And when the Queen Consort stands firm, it isn't just vanity. It represents the grit of a survivor who has scrapped for decades to ensure she isn't written out of the narrative. This isn't merely tabloid fodder. It is a quiet Cold War waged through political capital, allegiance, and heritage. The Globe is watching intently, dissecting every missed appearance and frosty interaction, asking the pivotal question, is this simply a reopened scar or evidence of an institution buckling under its own pressure? One fact remains undeniable. The standoff between the Princess Royal and the Queen Consort transcends rank or pageantry. It is a contest over who gets to architect the firm's trajectory and who in the final historical analysis will be recorded as its ultimate guardian. Lately, the tension flared up again, not in hushed whispers, but right in the public eye at the University of London's Great Hall, where the Queen Consort was being recognized for her literacy advocacy. The room buzzed with a mix of grandeur and anxiety. Camilla arrived with regal poise, Anne with quiet dignity, yet even their body language was read as a coded message. When the consort motioned for the princess to walk ahead, Anne declined, stepping back to let Camilla pass. It might have looked like a small courtesy, but it was a gesture heavy with symbolism. Just days later, the palace released a statement confirming the Queen Consort would sit out a major engagement to treat a chest infection. It might have been standard procedure, yet the timing raised immediate eyebrows. Why withdraw right on the heels of such a high-profile ceremony? Was this genuinely a health setback or something deeper and more strategic? Meanwhile, the Princess Royal pressed on with her itinerary in New Brunswick, and her lack of comment only served to stoke the growing rumors. The public is asking the hard questions. Is this a battle of egos or ethics? You have Anne, the gold standard of discipline and structure, squared off against Camilla, who climbed the long ladder from public rejection to the throne. The rumor mill is churning out theories about legal skirmishes and quiet turf wars. Maybe this will all fade into the background. Or we could be watching the clouds gather for the next massive storm to hit the monarchy. Transparency is not an act of cruelty. It is considered the highest measure of trust. Questions about biological eligibility and authenticity of lineage now seem to have moved beyond the tabloid pages and into the very heart of Windsor's legal system. At Clarence House, an unprecedented decision is believed to have been made, activating Regency Clause 14, a mechanism seen as freezing recognition for cases where there is ambiguity in the evidence. Sussex is embarking on a grueling journey where newspaper headlines are no longer mere information, but arrows aimed straight at the past. Is this a struggle for truth, or a chess match in which the pawns are slowly leaving the board? Recently, those in the know have begun to whisper about unusual signals emerging from the legal machinery accompanying the Duke on this path. Imagine an army advancing forward only for the chief architects of the campaign to suddenly choose to step away from their posts. Is this merely a routine personnel change or a strategic withdrawal after sensing cracks beginning to appear in the defensive wall? Many hypotheses suggest that allegations of gathering information through non-traditional methods targeting media empires are running into unseen resistance. As the light of justice begins to shine into hidden corners, details once thought to be solid now seem more fragile than ever. While one side strives to portray the image of a victim of press manipulation on the opposite front, media giants are painting an entirely different picture. Some currents of public opinion suggest that the line between observer and participant can at times be remarkably thin. Could it be possible that in this game of power and spotlight, every role has already been scripted? Media organizations are putting forward sharp arguments, hinting that the controversial information was not stolen, but may instead have been deliberately planted from sources within. This legal battle is more than just dry lines in court filings. It resembles a modern-day drama about privacy, reputation, and buried secrets. Will the Duke persevere to the very end in search of the light, or will the raging waves from media conglomerates cause all efforts to dissolve into thin air? The answer still lies behind the closed doors of the courtroom. And you, which hypothesis do you believe in? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. This battle no longer seems to be a confrontation between an individual and faceless conglomerates. It has become a direct clash among people who once stood within the same social circle. One hypothesis now being raised is this: could the line between a friend and a stalker be blurred by opposing perspectives? Let's analyze the case of a well-known figure in the media world. The Duke's side puts forward allegations of systematic invasions of privacy, yet the opposing side has played an unexpected card, an invitation from the past. Some sources suggest that, rather than lurking in the shadows, this individual was actually present at a private party in 2011, an event whose guest list was reportedly controlled by the homeowner himself. If this is true, it raises a major question. Could today's outrage be unintentionally denying what were once ordinary social interactions? Are we witnessing a kind of memory rupture between people who once smiled at one another? The story grows even more complex as an email from more than a decade ago is brought to light. The Duke's legal team views it as a trace of illegal activity aimed at tracking the whereabouts of a woman closely tied to his past. However, observers offer a different perspective. Could a routine information request by a beat journalist be interpreted as a dark conspiracy? This is the very crux of the controversy, the fine line between professional zeal and an invasion of privacy. What is astonishing here is not the presence of ironclad evidence, but the way it humanizes those being accused. Rather than appearing as ruthless news hunters, they emerge as professionals carrying out their mission within a complex, symbiotic relationship with the royal family. A thorny question is thus posed to the audience. Is this a genuine effort to cleanse the media landscape, or has it inadvertently become a deeply personal manhunt? As the boundary between journalistic practice and misconduct grows increasingly blurred, people begin to wonder, are we looking at a picture magnified by wounds that have yet to heal? We've just analyzed the situation, and now I want to hear your perspective. Do you see this Duke as a brave warrior or someone lost in the consequences of his own choices? If you feel he deserves sympathy, comment 2. If not, comment 5. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming analyses. Now let's continue with the developments unfolding in the courtroom. As those directly involved begin to speak out and present deeply human counterblows, the narrative of victim and perpetrator no longer feels as simple as the headlines suggest. Will these efforts deliver a resounding victory, or will they unintentionally trigger a backlash, forcing the public to reassess the true motives behind it all? We are still standing at the edge of a labyrinth where the truth may belong to neither side, but instead reside in the hazy space in between. It's often said that time is the fairest judge yet. Sometimes it is also the heaviest burden on the shoulders of those trying to change the course of history. In the quiet confines of the courtroom, observers couldn't help but notice signs of fatigue etched across the Duke's face. Could the weight of a legal battle spanning many years be beginning to leave marks that no camera lens can conceal? The most stirring development hasn't been new evidence, but rather the quiet withdrawal of those who once served as his legal backbone. In the world of strategic decision-making, when the architects step away from a project at its most critical phase, it inevitably sparks conflicting speculation. Some believe they may have sensed that the foundations of the arguments were gradually becoming fragile. Could this be more than a legal reshuffle? Perhaps a signal of eroding confidence in a script that no longer feels convincing enough? This lawsuit was once expected to be the cornerstone of a new era in the battle against the media. Yet if that foundation begins to wobble, it leaves behind a significant symbolic void. Instead of a resounding victory, concerns are beginning to surface about a scenario in which personal credibility is placed under the public microscope. If these efforts fail to deliver the hoped-for results, the price may not be measured only in staggering financial costs, but also in growing public doubt about the judgment and resolve of the individual at the center of it all. On the opposite side of the battlefield, figures once cast as the villains are now gradually emerging in a very different light. They are seasoned professionals, people who have endured personal adversity to defend the honor of their craft. Their resistance is not merely a denial, but a challenge to the very way history is being rewritten. It seems the focus of the trial has shifted. It is no longer a story about events from 10 years ago, but a kind of referendum on truth itself and how we choose to remember it. The image of a lone man in a formal suit standing in the middle of the courtroom evokes a deeply reflective feeling. This should have been a moment to assert authority, yet it seems instead to have become a mirror, reflecting the fragility of personal ambition in the face of harsh reality. Is this the end of a journey in pursuit of justice, or merely the beginning of a costly lesson about confronting the truth? Let us wait and see where the light at the end of the tunnel will fall in this high-risk game of chess. In the most critical moments, presence can matter more than any words. Yet amid the legal storm in London, an unusual emptiness has been noticed. Across the ocean, the silence of the Duke's closest companion has become a topic of intense debate. Observers are left wondering, is the distance of thousands of miles merely geographical or something more, a deliberate absence or a signal of a shift in the shared struggle strategy that has long defined the couple's public image? There was a time when the story of us against the world inspired millions. But now the image of the Duke walking alone into the courtroom facing tough questions and the departure of his advisory team evokes a very different feeling. Some observers argue that the lawyer's withdrawal represents not just a technical setback, but a vote of no confidence in the very essence of the lawsuit itself. When those who understand the case best choose to step away, that is when public trust begins to waver. The greatest pain in this courtroom drama may not lie in the allegations themselves, but in the fracture of an identity. The image of a righteous victim is being challenged by memories drawn from the past. As evidence of close social interactions with members of the media is brought forward, a more nuanced picture emerges, that of someone actively participating in the machinery of fame rather than merely being its prey. Being forced to confront a different version of one's former self appears to be a deeply disorienting and emotionally wounding experience. Harry and Meghan have built an empire on personal narratives, from multi-million-dollar documentaries to headline-shaking memoirs. Yet as the most crucial chapter, the chapter of justice, is being written, the solitude of the man at the center tells a very different story. Is this a strategic retreat to preserve what remains of that empire, or is it simply a battle in which each person must face alone the consequences of past choices? Whatever the answer may be, this game of chess has fundamentally changed how we view the struggle between fame, truth, and the price paid for freedom. Observing the courtroom footage closely, one no longer sees the image of a man radiating the unbreakable energy that once shook the media world. Instead, there is a distant gaze, a posture that seems to be bearing the weight of his own choices. It appears that our central figure is caught between two worlds. On one side, the roots he believes have turned their back on him, and on the other, the bright California dream that now seems to be gradually fading. Analysts suggest that this anguish is a symptom of a deep strategic flaw. In the world of books and documentaries, emotions can be guided through one-sided narratives. But in a courtroom where only cold facts exist and sharp cross-examinations reign, every constructed story must face the stress test of evidence. When emotionally charged accounts collide with indisputable data, the pieces of a so-called perfect media strategy begin to fall apart. The absence of the companion, widely regarded as the architect behind the couple's media strategy, carries a message laden with subtext. Could it be that when carefully crafted narratives no longer have a stage before stern judges' presence, itself loses its strategic value? The empty chair beside him is not merely a physical void, it symbolizes a profound shift in alliance. People are beginning to wonder, is this the moment when strategy gives way to reality? Once yearning to be seen as a brave warrior fighting for justice, that image now seems to be shifting into that of a soldier lost on a battlefield without comrades. Alliances that once felt unshakable have faded into the distance, leaving behind a fortress the owner believed to be privacy, only to discover it is an oasis of solitude. This battle may not end with a triumphant roar, but with a profound reckoning over the price of confronting the past. After everything, will what remains be the truth, or merely the shattered fragments of an unfinished dream? There is a stark truth we often overlook beneath the glittering cloaks. Fame is never the same as real power, and publicly exposing personal pain does not always translate into lasting influence. In a London courtroom, we are witnessing a violent collision between media values crafted in studios and the steel rules of justice. When the stage lights go out, only cold evidence remains, and that is where even the most carefully scripted narratives can be torn apart. Let's discuss a textbook lesson that every media professional must take to heart: consistency in messaging. Observers note a bitter irony in the Duke's journey. On one hand, he fights media conglomerates to reclaim the right to live in peace and quiet. On the other, his most private details, his most intimate conversations, are transformed into high-value contracts on streaming platforms. This contradiction creates a black hole of trust. The 21st century public is no longer easily swayed by one-sided declarations. They raise a philosophical question: can an individual ask the world to stop looking at them while simultaneously choosing to shine a spotlight into their own private room in exchange for attention? When this boundary is blurred, the very concept of a victim begins to wobble at its core. One detail that cannot be ignored is the heavy silence from across the ocean. In the world of power, couples' presence is not merely emotional, it is also a powerful political statement. The absence of a spouse during the most critical hours in the courtroom seems to tell a story of strategic withdrawal. Some hypotheses suggest that when the media vessel begins to wobble under legal waves, maintaining distance becomes a way to preserve what remains of the empire. In an alliance built on the slogan, "Us against the world," one person's solitude is the clearest sign of a campaign beginning to fracture. Is this a sacrifice allowing one partner to face the past alone, or a calculated move to avoid the fallout of a defeat that may have been foreseen? This silence at times can be more devastating than any direct criticism. We are living in an era where transparency is paramount. Audiences are no longer satisfied with moral lectures delivered by those who have amassed vast wealth precisely by making their private lives public. Pursuing a legal case driven by personal emotion rather than solid evidence is a systemic mistake. A courtroom is not a storytelling studio. It is a place for cold, hard facts. When advisors, the very architects of justice, choose to step away, it forces us to reassess. Could it be that the story itself contains contradictions that can no longer be reconciled? In the world of mass narratives, the most valuable asset is not money, but empathy. Yet observers are noting a troubling phenomenon. The map of trust the Duke once built appears to be eroding under the weight of his own decisions. When someone spends too much time trying to convince the world of their pain, they may unintentionally push the audience into a state of fatigue. Perhaps the line between a seeker of justice and a figure consumed by resentment is becoming more fragile than ever under the harsh light of reality. The decision of the legal team professionals trained to defend their client under any circumstances to step away is viewed by insiders as a symbolic catastrophe. In professional circles, such a withdrawal often sends a powerful unspoken message. Could it be that even those most fluent in the law have recognized the growing impossibility of defending arguments that are drifting further and further from reality? Stubbornness, when placed within a humanitarian mission, can be seen as steadfastness. But when embedded in a legal battle riddled with contradictions, it begins to resemble an obstacle. The message the public receives is no longer, "I am fighting for the truth," but rather, "I am trapped within my own preconceptions." We cannot deny that tabloid media has its dark sides, moments of cruelty and extreme invasions of privacy. However, the greatest lesson here lies in how we choose to respond to that darkness. Instead of changing the system or winning the public's heart through genuinely humane actions, the current efforts seem only to generate an endless loop of controversy. A painful question emerges. Why would someone with ample resources to change the world through philanthropy choose instead to spend the prime years of their life in suffocating courtrooms? Is defeating a newspaper truly more important than the peace of one's own family? What feels most regrettable to those who once supported the Sussexes is the waste of potential. Harry could have chosen a different path, a path of quiet, yet powerful dignity. A life of silent dedication to noble causes. The image of a devoted father and husband, living peacefully in the calm of California. Instead of choosing happiness as the sweetest possible rebuttal to his critics, he chose to plunge into a war of attrition. In this battle, whether he wins or loses in legal terms, he seems to have already lost the fight to fully regain public respect. Aggressiveness can sometimes blur the original noble intentions, leaving behind the image of a man lost in a maze of his own making. This becomes a lesson in how we confront wounds from the past. Do we spend a lifetime demanding a form of justice that may never be complete, or do we choose to let go in order to build a brighter future? The image of the Duke seated in the middle of the courtroom facing the empty chairs of former allies is the sharpest reminder of the loneliness that comes from choosing to fight with resentment rather than with love and creation. And perhaps the greatest failure is not losing a lawsuit, but losing oneself in the pursuit of validation from those who were never inclined to love you in the first place. Every choice in life comes with a price, and sometimes the highest cost is not money or fame, but peace of mind. Observers suggest that we are witnessing a cautionary tale about the fragile line between the pursuit of justice and an obsession with the past. When someone is unable to let go of old wounds, they may unwittingly turn themselves into a prisoner of a battle in which even victory can no longer bring true serenity. There is a bitter truth that Hollywood spotlights and royal opulence sometimes obscure fame, and wealth have never been guaranteed tickets to happiness. People are beginning to wonder whether the best response to media adversity might be to step back and choose a form of powerful silence as a way to heal. Yet in this case, the Duke appears to be caught in an inescapable vortex. The desire to prove his own righteousness before the entire world seems to have transformed into a kind of self-depleting energy. When efforts to protect oneself become instruments of self-destruction, it is hard not to feel a sense of regret for a symbol that was once deeply loved. In crowd psychology, empathy is a finite resource. When stories of being wronged are repeated too many times without corresponding acts of positive creation, public sentiment tends to shift from understanding to skepticism. Some currents of opinion state bluntly that it is difficult to sustain compassion for someone who appears to be constructing his own maze and then complaining about being unable to find a way out. The collapse of the righteous victim image in the eyes of the public may well be the heaviest defeat of all, far surpassing any courtroom verdict. Imagine the scene inside a historic wood-paneled courtroom in London, a space that embodies tradition, the rule of law, and cold, uncompromising truth. There, under the scrutiny of millions, one individual is forced to confront the consequences of his own decisions. That solitude is not merely the absence of allies or legal counsel, but the loneliness of someone realizing that the carefully constructed script he relied on is slowly unraveling in the face of harsh reality. This is not merely a legal or media failure. It appears to be a collapse of identity itself. Being trapped in self-created contradictions, wanting freedom while endlessly excavating the past, has produced a profound state of disorientation. We end this story not with a satisfying answer, but with a reflection on choice. Will this become the final point of awakening the moment one begins a true journey of healing? Or is it simply the start of yet another long cycle of resentment? The media storm will eventually pass. Headlines will grow old, but the legacy a person leaves behind is measured by what they build, not by what they try to tear down. Hopefully, after these turbulent days in London, each of us can find a personal lesson in the power of smiling and moving forward rather than constantly looking back and losing the future in the process. The journey of decoding the mysteries surrounding the Duke and his confrontation with the media has taken us through many layers of truth, emotion, and strategic calculation. Yet in a world of hypotheses, the boundary between right and wrong is sometimes nothing more than a veil of mist. This is for reference only based on unverified hypotheses, rumors, and public opinion. Let's discuss this topic from an objective, analytical perspective. Don't just stay on the sidelines. Join me as we dive deeper into this conversation. Press 1 if you feel these mysteries still hold strong appeal and you want to keep exploring. Press 0 if you choose a cool, skeptical mindset toward media-driven narratives. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss our next decoding journeys, where we'll continue peeling back the secrets hidden behind the brightest spotlights. Thank you for joining me, and see you again in the next round of hypotheses. The British royal family has long been seen as masters of maintaining absolute separation. Their motto: never complain, never explain. It's not just a rule, but a spiritual fortress protecting the survival of an institution. However, what happens when a crack appears from within? Insiders are buzzing about Princess Anne breaking the silence with The concise message consists of 11 words. Those 11 words are said to have created a psychological earthquake for Prince Harry in Montecito. Insiders speculate that the 11 words could be a confirmation of patronage or a warning about the confidentiality agreement has expired. Whatever it was powerful enough to shatter all trust. Let's rewind to the fall of 2016. A high-level security check was triggered. Normally, this would just be a quiet financial review. But with Meghan Markle, the security agencies seem to have stumbled upon something more. Gray area full of mystery. Under the lens of an independent investigation, the digital footprints tell a different story. During what was supposedly her most difficult period, her presence was recorded in luxurious floating cities in the Mediterranean, far beyond the financial means of a cable television actress. A custom-designed evening gown can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. The cost of a week in Monaco easily reaches $50,000. How can an actor earning $800 per episode afford such an extravagant lifestyle? This is where the term comes in. Strategic social position, it emerged. In intelligence circles, unidentified funding is a warning sign of potential security breaches. And if lavish parties are the stage, then Marcus Anderson is the director. The Istanbul event in 2015, a crossroads of East and West, was seen as Meghan's graduation, a signal that she was ready for the next level. But what Princess Anne discovered at Park Gatcombe was even more shocking: a secret alliance. The relationship between Meghan and Prince Andrew began in late 2019. Was the coincidence of both leaving their public roles a mere accident, or the first step in a coordinated plan? Princess Anne chose to break her silence for the sake of the crown's integrity. She revealed coded communications proving this wasn't a casual romance, but a long-term scheme funded by anonymous sources. Did Princess Anne attempt a rescue based on warnings from the national security system? Or are all these records just part of a larger scheme misunderstanding scenario? Is this harmful in an age where information can be distorted? Were Princess Anne's 11 words truly a blow to his beliefs? Or were they the key to unlocking a truth the prince wasn't ready to face? The answer will probably depend on how you connect these pieces. Do you believe in the power of love regardless of records? Or do you believe in the coldness of numbers and security data? Leave your opinion in the comments so we can discuss. In the world of closed rooms where billionaires discuss deals that will reshape the global economic map, the presence of an individual is rarely accidental. One hypothesis being put forward by observers is, could there be the invisible hand? What specific circumstances have created the unique routes and access for the protagonist in our story? The data reveals inexplicable coincidences. While the public image portrays an artist striving for self-reliance, the social footprints show a heavy presence at various locations. Sensitive coordinates, from luxurious super yachts to the exclusive circles of the Gulf elite. In the language of security analysts, the disparity between real income and a luxurious lifestyle is often seen as the mystery needs to be solved. Was this pure luck, or the result of a carefully orchestrated protection system? Princess Anne, with the mindset of a serious security practitioner, seemed to have seen through what a heart infatuation often overlooks. She did not view those lavish parties as mere entertainment, but as a systematic cultivation process. According to internal sources, palace security experts carried out a complex operational maneuver, network connection diagram. They compared travel diaries, unconventional financial reports, and social intersections from California to the Mediterranean. The biggest question wasn't who is she, but rather what facilitated this presence when funding sources don't appear in any transparent disclosures. It raises serious questions about the stability and security of royal relationships. A fateful confrontation is said to have taken place where Princess Anne wasn't discussing protocol, but rather national security. On the negotiating table at that time, according to rumors, was a dossier concerning sensitive international connections. She introduced a highly significant technical term, strategic social position, strategic social positioning. Let's analyze this concept together. In the upper echelons of power, individuals with exceptional charisma and networking skills are sometimes placed in positions close to high-value targets, not through blatant espionage, but through skillful manipulation, subtle social manipulation. They appear at important parties, are introduced to influential people, not by chance, but because they play a role as key figures. The link to fame as part of a long-term plan. Princess Anne is said to have pointed out that the photos in the files did not depict a lucky woman, but rather someone perfectly positioned within global power networks. At this point, we are faced with two opposing viewpoints. Harry sees in them the cruelty and prejudice of a closed royal family. But conversely, Princess Anne seems to be making a last-ditch effort to protect her grandson from a script that she believed had been written in advance. Is Meghan Markle truly a talented woman who opened the door to high society through her own charisma? Or is she merely a pawn in a larger strategic game that she herself doesn't fully control? According to internal sources, This profile paints a portrait of an individual who possesses not only innate self-confidence, but also a profound understanding of global power hierarchy. It is speculated that Princess Anne's warning carried an astonishingly realistic undertone. In the world of macro circles of influence, a person's presence is often inextricably linked to utility value, which they contribute to that ecosystem. However, in the face of what is considered irrefutable evidence, Prince Harry seems to have chosen to view the matter through the lens of love and protection. Instead of considering the security variables, he viewed it as an attack on personal happiness, an expression of the prejudice he so detested. As a result, financial reports, bills, and questions about the source of patronage were set aside, giving way to a fervent belief in a flawless, romantic scenario. To understand why Princess Anne was so determined, we need to look at empirical evidence, her. With over half a century of service within the royal apparatus, she has witnessed countless individuals attempting to access the core of power for various purposes. She developed a kind of recognition instinct for those incompatible behavioral patterns. In that dossier, every detail seemed to trigger her alarm system, from a lifestyle far exceeding publicly disclosed income, intricate connections in the Gulf region, to an extremely sophisticated yet flawed image-building strategy. Data crack compared to real-life situations. This is not simply a love story. From Anne's perspective, it is a long-term strategic plan. Let's set aside personal feelings for a moment and consider a more objective perspective. Economics of presence. Between 2008 and 2012, Meghan Markle's professional profile showed her as an actress seeking to establish herself in Los Angeles. With small roles and an estimated income of around $800 per episode on cable television, this was considered a salary for an average working-class person in the U.S. However, when compared to the leaked images, we see something else entirely: parallel reality. She appears in settings where the cost of even the smallest service can equal the annual income of a mid-level actress. From private parties in Monaco to exclusive events in the Mediterranean alongside international tycoons and powerful families. Let's do a hypothetical calculation. A first-class transcontinental flight, luxurious hotels during the peak season for the elite, and bespoke outfits. The total cost of these trips often reaches tens, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. The investigative question here is, how can an average labor budget afford an elite lifestyle? If the numbers don't match actual income, then the hypothesis of anonymous sponsorate has become more feasible than ever. And in security circles, unidentified funding is one of the greatest risks to the stability of an institution. The veil surrounding this dossier remains one of the greatest mysteries of modern royalty. Was Princess Anne's assertiveness an act of protecting the monarchy based on verifiable security data? Or was it simply the rigidity of a generation unable to comprehend the freedom of the new generation? If you were faced with such contradictory numbers and data, would you trust your heart or the cold, emotionless intelligence reports? Could there be truth hidden within these unpublished words? Leave your speculations and don't forget to sign up to join us in unraveling the next files in the world of top-level secrets. In the world of luxury, numbers often speak a language of their own. A bespoke evening gown for high-profile events can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. When you add in grooming services and accessories, the cost of a week-long appearance in Monaco can easily reach $50,000. Investigation data shows that this was not an isolated event, but rather a series of events. Iterative pattern. Over many years and at various geographical locations, the question analysts are asking is, in an ecosystem where everything has a price, who is paying these enormous bills? Through Princess Anne's lens, power and luxury are never bestowed unconditionally. As the romantic storyline fades a trading map, they're starting to reveal themselves. Among the elite and international tycoons, discretion is often the price to pay for access, and beauty is sometimes used as a means to achieve it. The intelligence assessment appears to have reached a systematic conclusion. These were not random invitations due to luck. The absence of personal credit card bills, large cash withdrawals, or receipts for luxury services leads to a more professional hypothesis: full sponsorship. In the field of security, this term describes an individual whose every aspect from travel and accommodation to appearance is taken care of. In return, that individual provides the values that the elite crave: strategic presence, connectivity, and absolute discretion. Princess Anne is said to have posed a question that would make anyone ponder: what is the actual return on this investment? And more importantly, who is holding the reins of this script? If the yacht trips and lavish parties are the stage, then the confidential documents point to a figure playing the role of director Marcus Anderson. While the mainstream media often portrays Marcus as a close friend and charming consultant of the Soho House empire through the lens of British intelligence, he appears with a completely different definition: strategic coordinator, the orchestrator. Why is such a weighty term used? Consider the Soho House network, a private club ecosystem for global power and celebrities. Anderson's real skill lies not in hospitality, but in his ability to building relationships. He knew how to put the right people in the right place at the right time. In 2015, a year before the fateful meeting between Harry and Meghan Anderson orchestrated what was considered a strategic milestone: the grand opening of Soho House in Istanbul. This was not merely a social event, but was seen by observers as a test for a future. Social status, Meghan's new life. We are faced with a labyrinth of theories. Is Marcus Anderson simply a loyal friend, helping a talented woman reach new heights? Or is he a crucial link in a long-term plan to connect valuable resources with higher-level objectives? When financial figures don't match the public image, and when manipulators appear at every crucial moment, we are forced to ask ourselves, could the greatest love of the 21st century actually be part of a carefully calculated strategic plan? The veil surrounding the Istanbul events and Marcus Anderson's role remains shrouded in mystery. Do you believe this demonstrates the power of genuine relationships, or is it proof of masterful social manipulation? Why has Istanbul become such a crucial location in this case? Located at the intersection of the refined Western influence and the massive influx of Eastern capital Istanbul, is not just a city, but a whole. Strategic buffer zone. This is where dialogues and deals take place outside of any official record system. Observers believe that the events here are not simply lavish inaugurations. They are more like a humanized capital markets. It is meticulously orchestrated where potential individuals are introduced to powerful patronage networks. Investigative documents suggest that this is precisely the point at which a specific network of connections from the Gulf region begins to emerge within the protagonist's orbit. If Istanbul is viewed as a graduation ceremony, it signals that an individual has completed their training and is ready to enter the next stage, the next level of international relations. And just a few months after this ceremony, the fateful meeting in London in 2016 took place, orchestrated by the man we call the facilitator, Marcus Anderson. The palace's reaction to the information allegedly from Princess Anne can be described in one phrase: chaos within the confines. A counter-statement was quickly issued, but what is noteworthy is what they said: don't do. Why wouldn't such a powerful organization take drastic legal action immediately? In the world of royal pronouncements, word choice is always a survival art. When denials are downplayed and lack absolute assertiveness, analysts often question an underlying concern, the fear of being proven wrong. The situation became even more complicated with theories about information leaks from other internal links. This was no longer a personal debate, but had become a serious issue. The battle of legal theories. While the legal teams of the parties involved focused their attacks on the motives of the person who leaked the information, one undeniable fact was the prestige of Princess Anne's more than 50 years of dedicated service. She was not a figure easily overshadowed by media campaigns. Behind the velvet curtain, close sources described an unprecedented atmosphere of urgency. King Charles was reportedly facing questions of considerable importance, vital to the institution. How substantial is the evidence? And how can we stop the torrent of information spreading globally in the 24/7 digital age? Traditional information control strategies appear to be proving ineffective against the power of independent discussion networks. Within just 72 hours of the underlying turmoil, the Royal Legal Council reportedly convened a special session. Their task was immense to resolve a constitutional labyrinth. It concerned titles, access to the budget, and public service responsibilities. Under the guidance of leading constitutional lawyers, a complex draft was formed. It's not just a story about a typical divorce, but a process. Restructuring an institutional alliance. Concepts such as Queen Emerita, Honorary Queen, began to be discussed, a ceremonial title seemingly separate from political privileges or the right of succession. Changes in staff support and travel expenses within 90 days of completing the procedures were a clear signal of this. Resetting financial boundaries. We are witnessing a period where the old rules of the monarchy are clashing head-on with the harsh realities of data and security reports. Is this a necessary purge to protect the survival of a long-standing institution, or the beginning of an irreparable rift within the world's most powerful family? As the shadowy coordinators emerge, and as the financial figures begin to tell their own stories, will the public choose to believe the romanticized narratives or the cold, hard investigative files? Were Princess Anne's 11 words truly the code to unlock a turbulent new chapter for the British royal family? What do you see behind the curtain of these diplomatic statements? Leave your thoughts and join us as we follow the further developments of this investigation. We are witnessing a phenomenon unprecedented in modern history, a major surgery. Legally speaking, the highest positions are at stake. For the first time since the Royal Marriage Act of 1772, leading constitutional experts have had to sit down to establish a new roadmap for the future of the monarchy. According to analytical reports, this is not just a nominal change, but a significant one. Systematic interruption. Regarding all the material privileges associated with the position of Empress, a strict confidentiality clause is being drafted. An absolute wall of information separation. This demonstrates a profound caution on the part of the palace apparatus, preventing any potential distortion of history in the future. This is not merely a legal agreement, it is an effort to protect the sacredness of royal memory. While lawyers worked in the quiet solitude of their closed offices, the world outside was in turmoil. Memories of the past, particularly those of Princess Diana, returned like a psychological shock that permeated the corridors of Windsor. King Charles, in a state described as both responsible and hurt, issued a specific demand all proceedings had to be closed by March. The ultimate goal was a public reset, permanently ending the lingering repercussions of more than half a century. An old chapter written in the shadows was closing, giving way to a title no longer associated with real power and an identity that no longer carried financial weight. While the palace is attempting a constitutional overhaul of its top positions, another seismic shift has erupted this time, marking the final boundaries for connections within Sussex. Most notably in this case is the role of Prince William. Sources suggest he was the one who demanded the most stringent financial terms, including fines of up to millions of pounds for any security breaches. The message behind this action is clear. The integrity of history is not a tool to serve personal agendas. King Charles's internal struggle between father, husband, and monarch created a deeply moving picture. His focus was torn between his ultimate duty and his hidden sorrows. But as dawn broke, another event completely altered the situation. The curtain has been drawn, but the truth still lies in the gray areas of history. Was Princess Anne's action a necessary act of cruelty to protect the monarchy or the beginning of an irreparable rift? 11 words were uttered, a message sent at 7:48, and the monarchy may never be the same again. Do you believe in the power of cold intelligence reports or the choices of your heart? Leave a 2 if you believe in institutional protection, and a 5 if you see this as a personal tragedy. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can delve deeper into the next secret files. The truth is still waiting to be revealed. William has declared a complete and permanent end to all future relations between the royal family and the Duchess of Sussex. No more conciliatory messages, no more open doors for reconciliation. It is an authentic border. It was outlined coldly and decisively. The door that many believed would always remain ajar has now been locked shut by a strategic decision to protect the heritage. That's right. 7:48 a.m. A coordinated media campaign was then activated. Prince William announced a complete end to all ties with the Sussexes. This was a cold and decisive, authentic border. That day would forever be etched in the annals as a day of redefinition. Was William's decisive move a step to save the future or the beginning of isolation? What do you think of this mysterious alliance? The greatest misunderstanding of the century or the final piece of the puzzle that unravels all the upheavals? This is not just an announcement, it is a synchronized attack in all major time zones. From London's morning news broadcasts to Asia's afternoon newsrooms and North America's late-night newsstands, the world seemed to pause to receive a single frequency of information. In less than 10 minutes, data from analytics platforms revealed an unprecedented surge of over 1 million interactions. Major news outlets like the BBC, Reuters, and CNN simultaneously changed their banners, relegating financial news and weather forecasts to the background. Veteran observers described this as an unprecedented phenomenon in my career. A moment when the mundane normal of life is completely overshadowed by a single informational entity. The most shocking thing wasn't the content, but the administrative tone of the statement. There were no personal expressions, no emotional appeals, and no references to past conflicts. Prince William's message carried a certain air of absolute determination. Remarkably, a profound silence ensued. All attempts at contact and questioning went unanswered. This appeared to be a deliberate strategy. Once the highest authority had spoken, any further discussion became superfluous. The silence at this moment is not a sign of embarrassment, but rather an integral part of the message. This decision is non-negotiable. By avoiding a direct speech, William created an analytical gap. Commentators lacked personal material to dissect, forcing them to focus on structure, precedent, and constitutional implications. However, a clear polarization emerged within society. Survey data showed a generation gap profound. While older generations see this as a necessary purge to maintain institutional stability, younger generations question this cold, decisive approach. Although financial markets only experience short-term fluctuations, market of trust is undergoing significant upheaval. Royal historians quickly searched for parallels in the past, such as the 1996 event involving Princess Diana. However, there was a fundamental difference. This time, the message was not conveyed through government channels but directly by the future king himself. Written by hand. At Kensington Palace, this event is described as a historical rift, not just within a single family, but across the entire structure of British society. Internal sources confirm that such response scenarios are typically prepared and refined over many years. What makes the moment in December 2025 stand out is not the surrounding noise, but the "it's certainly terrifying" of it. That day will forever be etched in the annals of the monarchy. It was not a day to celebrate, but a day of redefining. As darkness fell over the palaces, the biggest questions remained unanswered. Was William's decisive move a step toward saving the monarchy's future in a world demanding absolute transparency? Or was it the beginning of a systemic isolation where family values were sacrificed for the survival of the institution? Anne's 11 words, Charles's silence, and William's declaration all combine to create a picture of power where each brushstroke carries the weight of 1,000 years of history. Do you believe this was a necessary end or a strategic mistake that will change the dynasty forever? We are witnessing a moment not meant for celebration, but for marking a historic turning point. It is the day that Princess Anne, considered a beacon of steadfastness, decided that all limits have been crossed. The setting for this message was not the opulent palaces filled with rigid rules, but Gatcombe Park, her most private and peaceful sanctuary. This was not a royal administrative document. Why would someone who had dedicated their life to silent service risk their reputation at the last minute? Those present described a tense scene. Her face clearly showed the expression of someone who had kept a secret. The dark mystery. It had been too long. The knight's usually steady hands now trembled with the weight of a fateful decision. She didn't just say it. She presented what she claimed was evidence. The digital footprint is undeniable. Coded messages, call logs, and records of secret meetings all seem to paint an improbable picture of a connection between two estranged individuals, the Duchess of Sussex and Prince Andrew. Is the coincidence of their departures from public office a mere accident, or the first step in a pre-planned scheme? This is no longer a matter of ordinary family conflict. It's a matter of life and death, integrity of the crown. Let's analyze a shocking hypothesis. Two individuals who seem to have nothing in common are alleged to have collaborated for years. One left to seek privacy, and the other was forced to leave public duties due to personal scandals. Through the investigative lens of Princess Anne, one secret alliance, it had been brewing since late 2019. A resonance designed to create leverage against the very system they once belonged to. Her voice, usually steely and calm, now carried the sharp edge of a restrained rage. She had chosen silence out of loyalty, but when loyalty was misplaced, she chose truth. The fact that a press conference was held at a private residence outside the control of the palace media team is an extremely dangerous variable. For the royal apparatus, what she revealed was not just information, it was a devastating reality. The question is, what did she see that was so terrifying that it warranted such a direct attack? The answer seems to lie in the legal boundaries and funding implications that lawyers are trying to unravel. But its shadow still hangs over the future of the monarchy. The question now is no longer whether this scandal will be forgotten, but whether this institution can survive. Following what has just been revealed, a line has been drawn by Prince William, but the reasons behind that action seem far deeper and more complex than we initially knew. The royal family cannot continue to operate in the same way. Faced with a choice between transparent reforms or a rapid decline in public trust, the monarchy is in a precarious situation. Unstable state. Insiders speculate that those 11 words could be a confirmation of the sponsor's source or a warning that the confidentiality agreement has expired. Whatever it was enough to shatter all beliefs. Princess Anne, a woman who never sought the spotlight, was forced to become a witness to this pivotal moment. What do you think of the mysterious alliance between these two figures? Is this the biggest misunderstanding of the century or the final piece of the puzzle that unravels all the turmoil within the British royal family over the years? This content is purely for informational purposes based on unverified hypotheses and opinions. Let's discuss it from an objective, analytical perspective. Don't sit still, interact with me. Press 1 for curiosity and 0 for skepticism. Like and subscribe now to join me in uncovering the truth behind the veils. London, 2026. While the city sleeps, a storm is brewing inside Clarence House. Unverified reports are already stirring up public opinion about a move that could shake the royal family to its core. We aren't looking at standard royal protocol here. We're looking at the sudden halting of Princess Diana's inheritance. The big question is, why now? Is this a mere technicality, or have they triggered a protective mechanism designed to stop a disaster? Rumors started whispering through the halls of Windsor long before the outside world caught wind of the subtle shakes rattling the crown. Behind the flawlessly scripted spectacles and the phony veil of unity, a silent storm is brewing, and Anne can't just sit back and watch. This isn't just about protocol or dusty traditions anymore. It's got a deeply personal stamp on it. For months, Anne's been quietly clocking Camilla's every move, realizing her influence stretches way beyond what the late Queen ever had in mind. Reports are piling up that Camilla's been slyly staking her claim to symbols reserved for those who've truly earned their spot, not just inherited it through the usual pecking order. Whispers are spreading like wildfire through the palaces, from hush-hush jewelry fittings to speeches loaded with not-so-subtle digs, right down to special requests hitting the royal archives for historic outfits. To plenty of folks, it's just a touch of harmless modernization. But to Anne, it's starting to feel like a silent coronation, without a shred of buy-in, straight up threatening the bedrock her mom spent 7 decades hammering into place. Behind those velvet drapes, the air's getting thick with tension. Anne's silence grows heavier by the day, her gaze sharpening like a blade in every meeting where Camilla's name comes up. She started dodging those cozy get-togethers, and the insiders are buzzing about late-night huddles in the tucked-away rooms of Buckingham Palace, just Anne, a handful of trusted aides, and a dossier stamped with the late Queen's crest. Whatever goes down in those chambers never hits the books, but her hurried footsteps and that tight edge in her voice, they're screaming of a storm raging inside. For decades, she's been the steel spine of the palace, unbreakable, loyal, and so buttoned up that nothing could rattle her. But now everything's flipped on its head. It's not just Camilla's ballooning influence that's got her on edge, it's this gut-wrenching sense that her mother's dying wishes are fading away, chipped at by time politics and those cutthroat power games. Meanwhile, Catherine's getting shoved into the shadows, despite ticking every single box the crown's ever demanded. Anne sees it all too plainly, and her moves aren't just about shielding her own dignity, they're a fierce stand to safeguard the legacy her mom carved out for the royals tomorrow. Catherine isn't merely the poster child for the future. She's the breathing, beating echo of the enduring values the Queen left behind. But that glow, it's starting to flicker and fade. What really haunts Anne isn't the cutthroat politics, it's the straight-up betrayal of the legacy. For years, she's towed the royal line under her mom's watch, sticking to every dusty protocol and holding the fort for the monarchy through all the wild storms. Now she's seeing those hard-fought sacrifices get traded in for straight opportunism. For the first time ever, Anne's flirting with breaking her ironclad rule of silence. But what shoved her right to the edge? And why's Catherine suddenly the one she's got to shield with that fierce royal fire? It all sparked from one loaded symbolic play, Camilla's scheme, to commission a fresh royal portrait. Wearing the diamond crown that once graced Queen Mary's head. In a family where every gem whispers a piece of history, this choice lit the fuse on a hushed-up feud. Princess Anne's done holding her tongue. What the public got served up as a shiny nod to succession and modern monarchy. It all went down on the palace grounds, and plenty see it as a straight-up calculated power play. Camilla's ask wasn't just about slipping on some bling, it's her way of planting her flag as the true heir to Queen Elizabeth II's throne. And this ain't the crown she rocked at her own coronation. That diamond crown, the iconic one from Queen Mary's era, is tied to the most revered chapters in Windsor history. It's reserved for the women who clawed their way to power through sheer grit and merit not handed over on a silver platter of proximity or lucky breaks. Camilla knows that all too well. Her team slaved away for months with portrait artists, stylists, and royal curators to pull off this masterstroke. But the plan that was supposed to stay locked down tight, it leaked out of nowhere, unleashing a tidal wave of public backlash that Camilla's camp couldn't rein in. Royal watchers pounced on the timing and the setup in a heartbeat. This wasn't just some photo op, it was a full-blown coronation in disguise. Anne's tightest confidants clocked it right away. The instant she caught wind of that announcement, the ground shifted under her feet. For decades, she danced to the monarchy's unspoken tune of ironclad restraint. But now, that's not restraint holding her back. It's a gut punch of betrayal. That crown hits different for Anne. It once crowned her grandma, then her mom through the crown's stormiest make-or-break years. It's no mere power play, it's the living symbol of moral steel and unbreakable resolve forged and fire-tested across generations. And under Camilla's grip, history's starting to look like it's getting a full-on rewrite. To the public, it might look like a graceful older woman simply paying homage to royal heritage. But Anne sees a stealthy rewrite of the line of succession, one that could eclipse the very values her mother bled to preserve. And she's not the only one getting twitchy. Inside the palace, the whispers are turning into full-blown chatter. Even Charles, who's backed Camilla's role for years, is reportedly nudging the team to rethink that crown choice and pick something less radioactive. Camilla, though, she's digging in her heels. Insiders say Camilla's response was ice-cold, borderline curt. "Let the portrait do the talking," she snapped, but that unspoken flex sent a thunderclap through the corridors. Meanwhile, Catherine, the one quietly holding dignity and composure under skyrocketing pressure and relentless public scrutiny, was conspicuously absent from every discussion about the shoot. She still glides through events with serene poise, but her silence, it screams volumes. Catherine knows exactly what's unfolding, and she knows who's tracking every last detail. Princess Anne, Charles, and their inner circle have been scrambling to play peacemakers. Closed-door meetings, hushed phone calls, and last-ditch pleas to postpone the portrait all happened, but the train had already left the station. Camilla had drawn her line in the sand, and Anne was forced once again to watch the family trade legacy for optics. This time, though, Anne wasn't staying in the shadows, and she sure as hell wasn't going to fight with whispers. Soon she'd make a move that could rattle the monarchy's entire facade. In one rare, unguarded moment, Princess Anne shattered the silence that had bound generations of royals. With a voice that never wavered, she declared she would protect not her sister-in-law, Camilla. But Catherine, the one she believes truly carries the spirit and future of the monarchy. That moment hit like a freaking earthquake. It went down in what was supposed to be a routine internal briefing, just another yawn fest to hash out public events and royal ceremonies. But under the surface, tension had been simmering for ages, and Anne was done swallowing it. Insiders say the second the room fell quiet, Anne shot to her feet, face unreadable, voice sharper than a damn blade. Her words, they've been haunting the palace corridors for weeks. Catherine is the one who carries the Queen's legacy, not Camilla. The weight of that statement hit like a guillotine blade, freezing the room solid for a heartbeat. Even Charles went dead quiet. The air turned thick with shock betrayal and truths no one dared voice. Nobody saw it coming from Anne, the ice-cool, tight-lipped royal who'd never cracked in public. But she'd been pushed way past her limit, and that famously private loyalty, it just went full public testimony. Camilla, who'd strutted in all calm and confident, reportedly turned ghost white on the spot. The attack didn't come from the press, the critics, or the public. It came from inside the palace, from a woman who'd been absolute steel for the monarchy, Anne. For Camilla, this wasn't just a political gut punch. It cut deep personal. She'd banked on Anne's neutrality, maybe even her quiet backing, but the princess's words landed like a kill shot, instant and brutal. Reports say Camilla bolted from the room, brushing off aides, trying to calm her, blindsided by the realization that she might never have truly been accepted by the Queen's eldest daughter. If you were surprised by this story, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and sub to support the channel. Charles, swept up in a tangle of raw emotions, found himself backed into a corner with no clean exit. For decades, he'd juggled public duty against private love. Now, with Anne openly challenging his wife's symbolic claim and dragging the Queen's memory into the ring, every path looked blocked. He tried to cool the fire, floating the idea that legacy could be shared, that every woman deserved her own chapter in royal history. But the damage was done. Anne wasn't just speaking for herself. She was channeling a deeper collective unease and the monarchy's own guilty conscience. Catherine, perched near the edge of the room, was visibly shaken, yet still ice calm. Those in the room recall Catherine gently asking Anne not to escalate things further, trying to dial down the heat. But Anne shut it down. She turned to Catherine and said, "You can stay quiet now, but the whole nation will be watching you." That moment marked a seismic shift in royal dynamics. To Anne, Catherine was no longer just the supportive daughter-in-law or the poised Princess of Wales. In the eyes of the public, soon after, she became the living embodiment of the monarchy's future, even without the official title. This wasn't just a family spat. It was a full-blown power realignment at court. Anne just laid it all out. Her loyalty won't bend to titles, marriages, or political games. It'll be guided by legacy, integrity, and the one who truly embodies the soul of the crown. As the dust settles from that blazing showdown, the palace has no clue that Anne's next move will blow past mere words. After years tucked away, a letter from Queen Elizabeth resurfaces, addressed solely to Anne. But this isn't just a private note. It's a quiet royal directive that Anne believes must be honored, even if it means unearthing a secret the crown buried long ago. The letter had been tucked away among the Queen's personal effects, locked in a secure drawer at Balmoral, a spot only Anne was allowed to touch after her mother's death. It was handed over quietly, no fanfare, no pressure. What Anne found inside flipped the script on everything. It kicked off with gentle reflections of monarch's memories for her only daughter, a soft nod to the weight they'd both carried for decades. But as she read on, the tone sharpened. The Queen, famous for weighing every word, had chosen her language here with razor clarity, direct and undeniable. She spoke of the future of a day when the world would turn its eyes to the women of the crown. Not for their titles, but for their character. Then came the line that stopped Anne cold. When that day comes, look to the one who carries it with true dignity. To anyone else it might have sounded poetic, to Anne crystal clear. Even back then her mother had been watching, weighing, deciding who among them would truly safeguard the values she'd spent a lifetime defending. And Anne knew exactly who the Queen meant, not Camilla, with her hunger for status. Not someone who entered the House of Windsor through controversy or compromise. But Catherine's steady hands, quiet strength, the woman who never demanded the crown, yet wore it like she was born to it. Anne read the letter over and over, hands trembling, chest tight with a storm of feeling. It wasn't just the words that gutted her. It was the timing. The Queen had penned them during one of the family's darkest wobbles, not long after Harry and Meghan walked away, when the monarchy itself felt like it was teetering on a cliff. In her mother's mind, Anne realized the future wasn't locked in bloodlines or pecking order. It lived in character. And Catherine had become the living proof of that quiet, unshakable steel. For Anne, this wasn't about opinion or personal loyalty anymore. It had become a mandate. The Queen hadn't left a royal decree. But she had left something far more sacred than any decree, a final blessing, a final warning. They say Anne wept alone that night, clutching the letter, the room's silence shattered only by the crushing weight of realization. Her entire life had been defined by duty, loyalty, and service. But now duty had taken on a new form. If she stayed silent, the Queen's voice would fade with her. If she acted, she risked igniting a firestorm within the family. Yet Anne made her choice. Now, armed with the monarch's own words, she was ready to challenge Camilla openly, regally, and without apology. As the portrait scandal spirals further out of control, Camilla's once ironclad inner circle starts to wobble. Whispers of betrayal, emotional meltdowns, and leaked memos expose a queen under siege not by enemies outside the palace walls, but from within her own ranks. What was meant to be a triumphant royal milestone has collapsed into a full-blown legitimacy crisis, shredding Camilla's inner team like an unstoppable storm. The cracks appear quietly at first. The aides who spent years curating her public image are now scrambling as their carefully crafted PR strategy crumbles. Public outrage keeps mounting while support inside the palace quietly evaporates. Behind closed doors, Camilla's rage erupts in rare white-hot outbursts. According to leaks from Clarence House, she ripped into her longest-serving advisors, furious that the royal portrait narrative had slipped completely from her grasp. She demanded answers. How is Anne running the palace like a master strategist? Why does Catherine's understated grace overshadow the image I've spent years building? And most of all, why isn't the sympathy falling to me? Internal memos start leaking, first defensive, then downright desperate. One note allegedly penned by Camilla herself reads, "I am the Queen. Why does she get the sympathy raw and telling it lays bare the core of Camilla's soul? She's realizing a title can't buy affection. The harder she claws for power, the more the public tilts toward Catherine, who says it all without uttering a word. As tensions skyrocket, even her once loyal allies begin peeling away. Some refuse to comment. Others quietly brief journalists describing the Queen's behavior as erratic. The media, already whipped into a frenzy by Anne's defiance, now feasts on leaks straight from Camilla's camp. Her once unbreakable inner circle splinters into factions, diehards, who stay silent defectors, who slip away, and those quietly shifting allegiance to Catherine. Camilla feels her grip slipping. Public events get postponed. Her usual spot beside Charles suddenly goes vacant. Behind locked doors, she stonewalls PR strategists and shoots down every attempt to spin the narrative. Charles, torn between shielding his wife and holding the monarchy together, tries to broker peace. But every word Charles utters in Camilla's defense only deepens the family's silence. Camilla is now isolated, cornered, and worst of all, rejected not just by the public, but by the very institution she fought so hard to be accepted into. Her insistence that she was crowned by the king rings hollow against Catherine's natural dignity and quiet resilience. The queen in title is steadily losing ground to the queen in spirit. Yet through it all, Catherine remains unflinchingly calm. Silent, composed, and completely detached from the drama, her silence becomes her shield. It lets the public see her strength, grace, and wisdom without her ever having to say a word. Anne, watching from the wings, knows that silence is louder than any press release. The monarchy is shifting, and Camilla is no longer the center of attention. But the real jaw-dropper comes when Anne takes her crusade straight to the man who started it all, King Charles. Deep inside Windsor, a showdown nobody saw coming unfolds. Princess Anne stands before her brother not to ask, but to demand, and the ultimatum she delivers leaves the king visibly stunned. This wasn't a public spectacle, nor was it handled through proxies or private notes. Anne summoned Charles directly under the guise of what she called a family matter of national importance. But the moment Charles walked in, he knew this wasn't about protocol or tradition. It was about power principle and their mother's legacy. Anne didn't mince words. Holding the Queen's letter in her hand, she laid out her case with the precision of an officer and the fire of a daughter fiercely loyal to the crown. She hammered home the symbolic weight behind Camilla's portrait, the dangerous rewriting of legacy. And the outrage is now rippling through both the public and the palace. Worse, Anne wields their mother's own voice. She places the letter on the table between them and says flatly, "You know damn well Mum would never allow this. No excuses, just truth." Charles tries to push back, insisting Camilla's position was legally sanctioned by the crown and accepted by the public. But Anne brushes it aside like smoke. No one handed her the soul of this monarchy, she fires back. That moment crystallizes everything. Charles scrambles to reason, framing it as a perception problem rather than reality, stressing that the royal family can't be seen fracturing from within. But Anne was already one step ahead. She reminded the king that the monarchy was already divided, and the only question left was whether he'd lead with courage or keep coasting in comfort. As those words sank in, Charles fell silent. The conversation turned into a cold calculation. Anne pressed on she'd kept the Queen's letter secret until now out of respect. But if Charles refused to act, she'd have no choice but to make its contents public, not to humiliate the crown, but to save it. The message was crystal clear: the era of silent loyalty is over. This is about defending the moral bedrock of the monarchy. If Charles couldn't shoulder that burden, Anne would do it for him. The room fell dead silent, the kind that stretches on forever. Charles, rattled, picked up the letter and read his mother's final words over and over. No shouting, no slammed doors, just the sound of a royal legacy being challenged by the very daughter who'd sworn to protect it at any cost. The confrontation didn't drag on. The very next day, a leaked royal schedule dropped with a bombshell change. Without warning, the palace announced a new ceremonial role previously reserved exclusively for the Queen, and the one stepping up to represent the monarchy, not Camilla, Catherine. The public lost its collective mind. The press went nuclear chattering non-stop. At last, Anne had broadcast her message to the entire world. The announcement dropped at dawn on the official royal website, quiet, but about as subtle as a sledgehammer. Catherine, Princess of Wales, would represent the crown at a global peace summit, an honor previously reserved solely for the reigning monarch or their consort. Camilla's name nowhere to be found. The timing was way too perfect to be coincidence. Just days after Anne's showdown with Charles, and right in the middle of the Camilla portrait firestorm. The message was unmistakable. The future face of the crown would be grace, not dominance, dignity, not deflection. And that face now belonged to Catherine. Inside the royal household, whispers turned to murmurs of approval. Anne hadn't just suggested the change, she'd forced it through. Palace insiders revealed she was in near constant meetings with senior aides in the days following her clash with Charles. Her influence, once quiet and rarely flexed, had become the driving force behind a movement. And Catherine, though initially hesitant, accepted the role with the calm resolve that defined her. This was not a nominal promotion, but a statement of presence. And that presence resonated around the world when Catherine appeared at the summit, escorted by royal advisors and key dignitaries. Her appearance sent a message that no decree could convey: this is the woman leading the monarchy forward. Camilla, notably absent from all events that week, remained hidden behind the palace doors. The silence surrounding her absence was even more powerful than any denial. Her team tried to control the narrative, but it was too late. Public opinion polls in support of Catherine skyrocketed. Editorials across Europe and the Commonwealth praised a rightful queen rising to prominence. In that pivotal moment, Camilla's name gradually faded, not erased, but overshadowed. The roles had shifted, and the public recognized it. This was not merely a symbolic change, it was a seismic shift in the royal hierarchy. Yet it was not titles or appearances that defined the moment. It was Catherine's words, humble, measured, focused not on power or lineage, but on duty and legacy. She said service is not something inherited, but a way of life. The audience of world leaders and international press rose to their feet. The crowd not only applauded, but also chanted her name. It was a scene the monarchy had not witnessed in decades, since Diana, since Elizabeth. Anne stood quietly behind, not with pride, but with relief. The message had arrived. Her mother's legacy had found a worthy successor. Yet in the shadows of victory, one final shock awaited. Camilla was preparing a counterstrike, an unexpected move that would shake the entire palace. Veiled beneath the layers of royal tradition, but Anne was ready. As the nation watched, the future of the monarchy suddenly became uncertain, teetering on the edge of conflict. After Catherine assumed the representative role, Camilla vanished from the public eye. Days passed, shrouded in silence, no comments, no clarifications, no countermeasures. Yet behind the stone walls of Clarence House, a covert plan was unfolding, one so audacious that even the closest staff were left stunned. Camilla was reportedly ordering preparations for a private independent coronation tour. Not to celebrate Charles's reign, but as a direct symbolic assertion of her own authority. She would travel alone, donning royal regalia, visiting key Commonwealth sites, a move her aides described as a loyalty awakening. But to the rest of the royal family, it was far more perilous, almost resembling an open coup. Senior courtiers were stunned. The mere proposal of a solo tour without the king, without official approval, was unprecedented.